all over the internet, there's this lie that you see being peddled around everywhere you go to. You see people talking about it. And this lie is the myth of work life balance. And by that, what they're trying to say is that there's a way you can segment your life such that you have some time for work and you have some time for life, quote and unquote, and you can do it equally. So that you should segment your time such that you give like about 50% for work and you give 50% for what they are calling life. In this video, I'm going to be showing you why that idea does not correspond with reality, and it also does not correspond with the activities that are necessary to be done in order to be successful in life. So if you're ready for this video, I want you to like the video and hit the subscribe button if you have not already subscribed to the channel. I already explained the myth of work-life balance. That's there's some 50% of your time you give to work and other 50% you give it to life. And I think people that talk about it have a good reason for talking about it, right? You know, people spend a lot of their time working. They work to the point that they cannot take breaks, maybe vacation. They don't have time for their family. They don't have time for their spiritual life. They just work and work. And at the end of the day, they experience things like burnout. They experience things like maybe mental breakdown and even other health issues, maybe sicknesses and all those kind of things, because they give so much time or they have been given so much time to working. Their family is not together. Their family is in shambles and they are not making so much out of life, even though they are working hard. In fact, some people say that even after so many years of work, they still do not feel fulfilled in life. And the solution that many have proposed for it is that idea or that concept of a work-life balance. So that you need to segment it and say, this part of my life is work, but this other part is life. And I think the first thing that boggles my mind about this issue, even though it is well intentioned, is the definition of life, that is, or the classification of work and life. That separation, that there's something called work in one side, but at the other end there's another thing separate from work that is called life. And you start to wonder how sensible can that be? So are you telling me that work is not part of life? In fact, I'll argue to the contrary, that work is a major part of life. In fact, I strongly believe that we came to this life to work. The Creator gave us life so that we will use that life to work. Now, I'm saying that without having to go to the extreme that people that talk about work-life balance were even trying to correct in the first place, right? That, oh, we should work, because someone can ask that you're saying that we came to this life to work, and you're saying we should just be working. And now you can say we came to this life for work and still not be saying you are not supposed to rest. In fact, for those people that went to school, let's say primary school, secondary school, you went to school to learn, to actually work, but you had break times. You had depending on if the school you attended was a religious school, you had times for maybe religious worship. For some schools, they have 3 breaks. Some schools have 2, but I think most schools have 3 breaks, right? They have a short break. They have a first long break and a second long break. In fact, for schools that do what is called extra lesson, they have another short break even before the extra lesson. Now, it will be weird for someone to say, I'm in school for breaks. We take 4 breaks or 3 to 4 breaks in school, or maybe 2 breaks, depending on the way the school works and how much time they are giving us breaks, right? You spend like 2, 3, 4 breaks in school, but you still cannot say you are in school for breaks. In fact, it will be right for you to say you are in school for work. for academic work, even though being productive in your academic work will necessitate you taking some breaks so that there's not going to be overload on your mind. That's one way of looking at it. So work is a huge part of life. It's a huge part of life. You can't separate them. Work is part of life. People talk about, when they talk about work-life balance, they say life like your family. You should have time for your family. Family is work. Like being in a marriage, especially a marriage that you are taking seriously and you want to be a successful marriage, it requires work. Raising children, that's if you are concerned about children and you actually want your children to turn out well, is work. So those things you are calling life actually even require work. And the other things people call life is maybe vacations, holidays, having times of fun, maybe partying and stuff like that. Those things are the products of work. They are the product of work. If you work well, make some money, that is when you can afford a lot of those things, right? Someone can argue that there are some things that you don't need money for. You can take a walk in maybe a forest, enjoy nature, go to the river bank, just have a nice rest or a nice walk or hiking or something like that, and it doesn't cost so much money, and that will be a valid argument. But my point is that work is part of life. In fact, it's a major feature in life. And everything that we do in life is because we are here to work. If you don't look at it that way, you probably end up not having a fulfilled life, right? So why do we take vacations, for example? We take vacations as rest from work. We also take vacations as preparation for work. So we rest from work to get our bodies and our minds healthy, rested, reinvigorated, so that we will go back to work. Now, when it comes to family, I already said that I think that is part of work too. Even though you enjoy sometimes being with your family, the same way sometimes you enjoy being at work, right? But it does not change the fact that it is work. So I consider that as part of work, which is not wrong, which is not bad. And sometimes, even at the place of work, some works, that is, if you are not in an maybe abusive work environment, or there are not goals that you are trying to seriously achieve, that is taking so much of your time, even in the place of work, there are times for breaks to help you recharge, to refuel, and to actually be more productive at the work that you are doing. Now, another thing that I would like to emphasize is the fact that there are different phases in life. And it's so important for one to understand this. There are phases in your life where there are certain things that will be your number one priority. For someone that is maybe in their 20s, there are some things that should be the person's priorities, and it's different from what should be someone's priorities typically in their 30s or in their 40s or in their 50s, right? There are different things for different phases or even stages in life. And that's something that should be really considered. There are some times that, especially when you're starting out at something, you need to go all out. And at those times, there are things that people consider life that will suffer, right? You have to say no to so many parties. You have to say no to so many events or gatherings. You have to say no to maybe following sports. You have to say no to so many things that are not so important at that point. In fact, there's a point that you may say, depending on your preferences and depending on the stage that you are in. You may say that, okay, I don't want to have anything to do with marriage right now. I want to focus. You know, when people think too much about balance, they start to feel the guilt of going all in for something. They feel guilty. They say, oh, I'm working too much. I'm doing this too much. Now, there could be a valid point there where someone is working too much to the detriment of the person's health, right? But for most people, that is not the case. They just feel like they are missing out. I want to party. I want to see. There are some things that you just have to take care of quickly. Sometimes you have deadlines. Sometimes and every period of your life is not going to be that way. There are some days that you are going to be freer, right? Especially if you have done a lot of work at another or at an earlier stage of your life. It helps you to have enough money or enough time later to be able to afford some things. You don't need to feel guilty about going all in on something and really focusing on something and, putting away things that for you at that point is a distraction. In fact, like I've said, life is about work. Every other thing that we do around work is for work at the end of the day. Either refreshment from work, rest from work, or re-energizing yourself for more work. Focus is something that many people fall short on and they really, really need to learn. I did a video talking about focus, how you can stay focused, and how focus is important, staying around or staying away from distraction. I'll put the video on the screen and you can watch that video after this one. Till the next video, ensure you are getting things done. Bye.